Go.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. We are continuing on our topic from last week, which was about solar punk. Even though we never did quite mention solar punk, we were just realizing
Yeah, that
we
was
will
that
remedy
was the
that.
hard part about it, I think.
It was an educational piece, not so educational. Me and Gunnar were just kind of talking about the turn of events that led us to be doing this right now. I kind of wanted to just take a moment to appreciate. I'm 34 years old, and I didn't think I'd be doing this at this age. I'm really not dressed as professionally as you would want someone giving journalism or information, and I'm sitting cross-legged because I need to be charging my phone. It's a very amateur hour, but you know, we're doing this because we do feel like this is an important time to be doing this kind of work. I don't know, Gunnar, if you want to share a little bit about
Yeah,
what we talked about.
I mean, well, as far as like unprofessionalism goes, I'm in a wife beater situation. I haven't done anything with my hair in years, eons. It feels like at this point. I don't really know because of everything that's been going on in the world. Uh, I feel like this is the best way that maybe you agree with me, Jose. Like this is the best way that we can contribute to something. I think that we've really like found our niche way to actually make a contribution, which I think is a lot of people's issue. I think in the world today is you look at protesting or just acts of disobedience in general, and people are like, oh well, maybe I'm not cut out for this or I'm not cut out for that, or I don't like the people who post everything on Facebook, and make arguments on Facebook. But there is something out there for you to do, right?
Right. If anything, just being an informed person that is conscious to be doing a better effort with a growth mindset. If you're doing the least amount like that, it's a lot like Mitt Romney being the only Republican at a Black Lives Matter protest. Doing the least amount, being the most impressive. We are trying to be a resource, a catch-all
Yeah.
for folks. Yeah. Um,
I feel like last week we came into this. I was late getting here because last week, on Monday, like the whole city, I mean the whole country, but like the whole city at the very least was kind of in a lockdown, weird state of panic. And so I was late getting in, and you were trying to get your shit together. So we were just like all sorts of disorganized, but I enjoyed the format that I think we just sort of accidentally made of
yeah.
like definitely came with like topics and a purpose, and I'm absorbing all of that as you're explaining it, and I like that.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being able to just adapt with me because I am really just kind of making this up as I go based on my loose notes here. But city was in a state of panic last week. Now we have a curfew lifted, and city's talking about defunding the police. I know that I was out at the protest this weekend, pretty exhausted. Shout out to people that were out marshaling, out protesting, out supporting. Shout out to people that have been donating and sharing these stories online and clarifying things for people online. It was a concerted effort to get to the state of panic we were last week to now real serious discussions about how does police abolition look like as implemented, at a civic level, at a city life level. I mean, these discussions hopefully lead to these things actually materializing. Saying all that, we did leave off last time on an interesting bit. There was kind of a long clip I kind of wanted to revisit. That we were on video clip 5, you
Five,
said?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I feel
Okay.
like that's where we left off. I'm not certain though, but I mean we were talking basically about ethanol. I remember having the conversation about ethanol, which is what this clip is about.
All right, let's pick up there because that means we already touched on Monsanto and the drug aspect of it. But for sure, hemp again, it's going to be an industry. There's no real stopping this industry from becoming a reality in America, in the world very soon. It is a natural plant. It's something that anyone can grow and turn into products. So let's get into why the government's going to work really hard to have really tight regulations so that they really limit. this industry to what they wanted to be doing for them.
Get to this. Boom, bam. Also, Jose, let me know like if there's any echo or anything on this, just because I'm messing with some new audio settings on my end over here, so I want to make sure that it's not terrible.
For sure, all learning as we go.
Hemp could be used as a fuel source.
And again, Gunnar, thanks.
Source.
Appreciate you so much, because at 34, like I'm like technologically spent. I'm done. Like I learned a little bit about Slack. I'm like pretty good on it, and I'm on Twitter. And
see, I at 24, I feel like I'm still getting. I'm like catching back up to where I feel like my peers are currently, or a lot of my peers, a lot of people. But I also am trying to figure out how to be responsible with my social media intake, because it's very taxing on you, I think, mentally.
Yeah, talk to the wrong guy about that. We might do a whole episode on that at some point.
Ooh, cool. I'm down with that. I definitely have a lot of experience to talk about, to bring to that maybe.
We might actually have to really do that.
Cool. All right.
Let's hear about hemp ethanol. It is, again, ethanol is not gasoline. It's not diesel. It's not going to move your everyday vehicles or farm equipment, although there's a lot more research and production of hemp diesel that would move farm equipment, which that in and of itself would be a pretty good offset of CO2. But this is hemp ethanol. Ethanol is common to as an energy resource, and we're going to learn this documentaries from 1995, so we've known for a long time.
The answers have always been there.
The answers have always been there.
Since 1995. That's when I was born, which is just wild. Okay, and ready, set, go.
Could hemp fuel help us to kick our dependency on highly toxic fossil fuels? Carbon monoxide is the leading cause of death in this country from poisoning. It accounts for more fatalities each year than all drug overdoses combined.
Over history, it would be hard to predict how many people have died from gasoline that didn't know what killed them. It is a poison-spreading material because it is distilled with benzene, hexene, and xylene, and toluene. These chemicals are all known carcinogenic materials.
Could this be the solution? That which fuels a romantic dinner is also a good fuel. Normal drinking alcohol, also known as ethanol, is the cleanest of all liquid fuels. George Tyson is developing techniques to produce ethanol from fast-growing, high cellulose plants like hemp.
We jokingly say this is the fuel that if you were burning it in your car, the reason a dog would chase your car was because he liked the smell of the exhaust pipe. As you can see, there is no smoke emitting from this in this room. Try this with a tablespoon or two of gasoline, and you will have the comparative test. Also, when your engine is through burning on gasoline, take it apart and see how much dirty carbon you find in the engine. We found that running a car 3,500 miles, we couldn't even get a white glove dirty when we took our finger inside of the exhaust pipe.
All plants are storehouses of solar energy, and all plants can be fermented to produce ethanol fuel.
Solarpunk.
Plants also
this guy's
produce
talking about this like energy source, steampunk, solarpunk, same ideas, except green energy instead of steam energy.
Same influence of movement, though. I mean,
you know.
The oxygen needed to combust the fuel in a car. The emissions, carbon dioxide and water, are reabsorbed by plants. It is a clean and balanced cycle.
When one reviews all of the possible alternative fuels that we may use for transport use, ethanol emerges as about the only one that can achieve significant reductions in carbon dioxide accumulation in the atmosphere.
Even the 10% blend, where you only have 10% ethanol in the gasoline, lowers some emissions as much as 25 to 30%.
For this reason, blends of 10 or 15% ethanol with gasoline are being used in several states in the US and in Australia as a means of reducing air pollution. Ethanol blends also eliminate the need for lead in fuel. The ethanol is being distilled from sugarcane, grains, or residue starch as is the case with this ethanol plant in Nowra, Australia. Ethanol
Okay, so but curious, saying that like we're putting ethanol in gasoline like at low quantities, right? Like 10%, whatever. Is that like is that really like marginally better than having no ethanol in the gas at all in the first place?
I mean, sorry, repeat your question because there was like a lag over here.
Like
Sorry.
does the fact that we're putting like 10% ethanol in all of the gas, right? Like is that really like making a significant impact at all really with emissions, or is that just something that like the industry is saying is happening? I mean, I don't really know.
No, that is actually really worth looking into, what you call it, and worth parsing out. We should be getting off fossil fuels and any combustible fuels as quick as possible. But with our existing technology, because we're already doing this, we could be using hemp for these end goals. Now, I think that, and I'm glad that you asked that, because the real reason why we should be entertaining a combustible like hemp ethanol, hemp diesel, for motor vehicles, for vehicles to begin with, is because the alternative solution is batteries and solar energy, depending on high amounts of powerful lithium batteries, and batteries that require a lot of the rare minerals in parts of the world that we're seeing a lot of kind of colonial agitation.
Lots of places that probably could benefit from not having people work day in and day out in mines collecting all of this and transporting it on the railroads that are just set up for that purpose and not advancing their people.
No, that's precisely right, which is why, I think there's a real debate about hemp as an energy substitute source and what role that plays in climate change and the Green New Deal, when solar does perhaps produce better immediate results, but long-term sustainability of the planet, if you are gearing your society towards a fuel source like that is, you have wind, you have solar, but you can't completely get rid of your machinery that requires combustible energy, and substituting that instead with a plant-based energy source, as we've seen research has been working on, as opposed to solar, you are not dependent on those high, trade routes, high amounts of capital for mining operations that they in themselves are not sustainable. So if you are looking for sustainability as the end goal for the Green New Deal, for combating climate change, you can't really negate the opportunity that combustibles in the forms of hemp that are cleaner, that will keep our society relatively in motion for what is our norms. That leads to more of a long-term solution for not self-accountability,
Like
sustainability.
self-awareness, self-sustainability. Yeah, because it's like if you can use like hemp-based ethanol to sort of wean the rest of the world off of fossil fuels, then that gives you the sort of leeway and perhaps saves the environment along the way to say like, okay, well, maybe it's not here to stay. Maybe we need to find a better solution, but it helps the environment and it gives us a little bit more time, I think, to just say like, okay, what can we do moving forward? Can we build more efficient batteries that don't take up, precious minerals? And
I mean, the fact that we have this opportunity and solution here, and we're not running as hard towards it as, hey, let's change up the political dynamics of Bolivia so that we can hurry up and start mining there quickly, because the quicker that all of California is driving a Tesla, the quicker that their carbon footprint goes down, and our part of the Paris trade agreement seems that much better. Like, that's a much more destructive path than let's start subsidizing hemp at the rate that we do soy and corn, and have them compete for sustainable combustibles and what's having a better impact, and hemp, being able to do that, as well as growing into a bigger logistics chain for amounts of products that it can produce, for the amounts of jobs that would produce, and all of these things a lot more slanted towards environmental sustainability. The problem with that is that there's no capital involved with that. There's no one billionaire company, $1 trillion company, sucking up all the labor and rationalizing all of the processes for the government. Instead, it's the government having to do something long-term sustainable for its people, which has just been you know, intuitive to
That's
the
not what
way.
you see in the current model at all.
And the reason for that is racism, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just, America needs to come to terms with the fact that a lot of its founders were predominantly English and German colonizers that worked the labor of this land to their profit and benefit, who were getting overtaxed by a king who, honestly, you know what? I've been a little bit around the world, and, like, the King of England's point of view was, hey, I'm taxing you because we just fought a war to save you guys. Makes sense that you guys get taxed a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe you might have earned it a little bit since we had to save your asses.
It's like armies, cost money, and you guys are the ones that need the army the most. It's like, I don't. So
And you
there's
guys
that
are
part.
kind of just like out there, you're in a faraway place. We can't, it takes many days for us to get there. So of course it costs a little bit more money. That's how the world
So
works.
a bunch of colonizing merchants that made their homes in this land were just like, hey, you know what? If we organized all of the workers, we could steal half of this empire right now. Like we could just take that shit from England. And but then the War of 1812 has England burning down the White House, and them coming up with like some weird peace agreement that like creates Canada in the long term. But like, I also feel like that also lends to the ongoing colonizer lens of America, of just like this American democracy project is still to the benefit of the colonizing institution, which the Democratic Party being the longest it's corporation, Democratic or corporation on the planet, kind of being that, you know, the government's purview isn't how do we create a sustainable society. It's always how much can we extract from this land for the profits of the few people to actually own this government, own this corporation, who actually rationalize out all of this society through their corporations and their industries that we help them control through our sanction of violence, from our soldiers to down to our police. Nowhere in any of this is there any of the vision that we see in, I'm sorry, any other fucking country about caring for its people and long-term nation building. America had its opportunity to nation build after the fall of after the Cold War. We tore down that wall. We were baller as shit in the 90s. And what did we do? We went off and decided, okay, well, now how do we adopt our model of colonizing this land to colonizing the whole damn planet? And it's not a project that is foreign to the entire planet. They're just like, yeah, people do this shit all the time.
I don't know. I'd like to think that I'm like a very gentle person. I'd like to believe that there's a lot of inherent good in the world, and I think you see that a whole lot in what's happening around us today, in the streets everywhere, in cities all over the world, not even just in the United States. It's just like a tremendous amount of good people who are fed up are going out and actually showing their solidarity for something that should have been not as big of an issue as it is today. Like it should not have taken over 5 centuries, almost nearly 5 centuries for America to get it in its head that all people are the same, we're equal, we should be treated equally. And that's just something that's not
I mean, that's kind of one of the scary things about the KKK. They didn't just come up with the name Ku Klux Klan because it was catchy. You know, like a lot of their symbolisms, a lot of their names, a lot of that stuff has a deep spiritual meaning and connections back to the Crusades, you know, when like it was a race war, like of holy white skin against evil dark skin. Like
Yeah.
the KKK is spooky, you know,
Chaotic
and they're
evil.
chaotic evil, you know, they used to be, oh shit, yeah, you see, like I blame the KKK for that one.
Yeah. No, they totally did it.
Fuckers. But yeah, you know, but like also like there used to be a lot more of the disciplined evil, you know, a lot more. They used to be like the legit lawful evil, like creating the laws and enforcing the laws with the cops. Like they still want to pine for those days, but and exposing them and you know their role in law enforcement and systemically, you know, within the Democratic Party. So like at all levels of our government,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we are by taking the KKK out of the law enforcement closet. You know, I do worry about, are we going to see an insurgency of violence the way that we saw like in Ireland during the Troubles, you know, like during, you know, like that kind of level of, because that is how ingrained, you know, what this level of racism and how ingrained it is to our system is. You know, that's why we have these unsustainable systems that are killing the planet, because human life, anything natural to the earth is not seen as profitable. Anything that was worth, I mean, the way they asserted values was very different. I mean, we go back to the indigenous versus Western discussions and philosophical fights that are actually, you know, a big part of American history too. Um, we do need to start treating and viewing whether we are or not, because you know, like I watch Joe Rogan, I'm aware of like, you know, alien astronaut theories and all this Pepe's and all this race war shit that the outright's on about. Like, you know, okay, you know, we get a little bit of that, but like if we acted like, okay, we are not going to be able to get to Mars within the next 10 years, so that makes us indigenous to this land. Let's like all work to live in sustainability with this land. uh, you know, we hemp becomes a much more pronounced what you call industry, especially because it keeps geographies a lot more self-sustaining, and you know, it does run the risk of creating isolated societies. You know, we still have a lot of that, you know, even within our society. So
I don't think that like even though social media has made the world so much more connected, it also in a way has done a really good job at dividing us. Because now there's clear, I think you can always open up your phone at any point in the day and see like a clear, decidedly something different than what's in your world. And like you can either choose to accept, I keep hitting the microphone, you can choose to accept that is what reality is and try and look at it through someone else's light, or you could say, that's not really for me, you know.
it's true.
And
I do. You know, I don't think that it's going to be coherent. I don't think that what social media offers humanity is ever going to be really coherent. But I think that we, you know, as human beings, we make coherency out of what we got to work with. So social media just being a chaotic mess of anybody's reaction at any given time. The hope is that we see more positivity overall in an algorithm style that we can actually measure and say, oh yeah, no, we do actually generally just like to fart around and laugh and get high. Pretty harmless
I'm just
animals.
amen to that.
Yeah, you know, all things considered. We're just emotional, fucking destructive, selfish, dumb animals that can't stop killing the planet, you know, even though we know it's bad for us.
We're like the most advanced species on the planet, but we have but with that power comes grave responsibilities.
Oh my God, Gunnar, you said it, you get it.
I mean, it's true though.
That's it, bro.
Is
I
that
mean,
or
you're a
could we
human
just wrap up the
being.
show? All right, let's try.
That's it. I mean, like, society saved. We said the words, but that's all that this really is about. You know, America has great power. We as individuals have our own sense of power. Any sense of power you have comes with a responsibility. You know,
Yeah.
And
Even if
you know,
that's like just self-awareness,
yeah,
just like the ability to say it's not all about me and what I got going on in my world.
right, yeah. Um,
Oh gosh, where were we in this clip?
Man, we just like
We
very
just
irresponsible of us. You know, we
yeah
have
yeah,
all
yeah
this power on this
we're
platform,
yeah we have
but
the
you know,
power.
I think that I'm glad that we took it to that far because you know we are talking about hemp fuel, and it is kind of fantastical. It's like you're just going to replace fuel with hemp fuel. We have a much better environmental, sustainable answer in batteries and solar panels. Uh, Again, exploring a combustible fuel like hemp diesel, like hemp fuel, is only meant to create the long-term solutions that aren't even there with solar panels, with solar that require constant mining operations. You know, we this is all better tracked by a lot, you know, more heavy duty planning firms, and I'm sure that, you know, if this narrative were to catch on, research papers, you know, combating this of like actually solar is the best idea ever. These are all the numbers, you know, like to show why will come out. That research isn't being done now, and it's not being done for in a comparison for hemp specifically, which is really what I'm trying to agitate for. That's why this is very sloppy. I'm not here trying to change the world with this one video, but if enough planners, if enough activists, if enough people, artistic people with visions for what Solarpunk can be, you know, create this vision, then that's when these institutions that actually rationalize all these processes start to push back or start to actually explore this, and that's when we can actually start formally, you know, seeing what's possible and what's not. Otherwise, the trajectory that we're on, you know, Elon Musk has the battery company. You know, he is you know he can kind of rationalize out his company to solve that problem out for us. That's the model that works for America right now that we should be pushing back against. um, I did have more about, well, Mitch McConnell is the reason that the hemp laws are moving and also stopping. Obviously he's very interested in keeping America's norms, uh, the norms. I mean, you know, he is, you know, no not shy about, you know, being a Confederate,
He's not a big
kind of
proponent of change.
not a
Didn't
big
seem.
proponent of change.
Yeah. I don't. He
On
doesn't
the
seem.
record,
Yeah, very
on the
vocal
record
about
with
it.
that. You know, so he is definitely wrapped up in keeping hemp in the dark and out of being researched to these extents. Medicare for all also something that you know, would run in tandem with this. Hemp, you know, being turned into food, being something the FDA can improve, something that maybe can lead to medical research, something the pharmaceutical companies do not seem to care for, and continue to agitate McConnell to limit a lot of what hemp can be turned into, sticking to textiles and CBD products for the time being.
I don't really. Something I've never really understood is clearly like you can see the potential that hemp has in the industry, right? For how much money it can make. So why isn't the pharmaceutical industries like hopping on that gravy train of money? Like if what is really stopping them from doing that?
Thank you. What you call it? We did share in last episode a research paper indicating that despite conspiracy theories that suggest otherwise, Monsanto, Bayer, pharmaceutical, big chemical companies that work with agriculture don't actually influence our food policy as much as one would think. They do influence and they do have a big say and a big hand in it. But at the end of the day, we are working our food policy, yes, towards profit, but also towards sustainability. You know, those aren't just words that activists came up with. Sustainability as a buzzword is something common within urban planning and in civic workers. That is ultimately that's the optimization that you want any civic processes to be going towards, sustainably continuing itself. Uh, so, you know, pharmaceutical companies won't get on the hemp train if they can't patent it and own it. Maybe Monsanto wants to own some strain of THC or CBD, but that is still very complicated and hard, especially with a plant that's grown anywhere on the planet at any given time, quite easily, quite resiliently, and can be done by anyone. it's very hard industry to control. It's why it was just, the easy solution was to criminalize it and say if you smoke it, it makes you crazy. I'm full disclosure on this show that I've smoked cannabis almost every single day since 2016 when I became a medical marijuana patient.
Same,
Uh,
but I didn't do the. I didn't. I'm a recreational type guy.
yeah, well, I
Full disclosure, brother.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm not, crisp as I can be in my work, but it hasn't made me violent, and it certainly hasn't stopped me from, you know. Well, I mean, my life hasn't been awesome. I'm not gonna say that, but it hasn't been bad. I'm not gonna complain about it. Um, so
I definitely should say, like, in my own personal experience, like, if I make it a bigger habit daily for a long period of time, it does prove to not help me out in the long run. So, but that's what, like, taking breaks are for, and knowing your limit to anything. Because I mean, it's, even though marijuana is not like alcohol in that it can't kill you, it's not been shown to kill you, right, in any real way like alcohol can. It still is, I mean, a substance that alters your mind, and you gotta be
Right.
responsible with anything like
Precisely.
that.
No, precisely, and me actually being a medical marijuana guinea pig for the medical pilot program in Illinois, one of thousands of people that was a case study, but I had ah, I have an autoimmune disease, Crohn's and colitis, and it's not great, and but that definitely changed my view of cannabis, and the fact that the illegality of it made it to the point where police could indiscriminately kill you if they felt that you had it on you. That made you potentially a very dangerous criminal that would justifiably give them cause to fear for their life, to their bureaucracy. That really fucked with me, being a medical marijuana patient and being part of that dam breaking. One of the reasons why I do smoke every day is to continue with the proof that I can fight the system while proving the system was hypocritical to begin with. The legality of cannabis as a substance that creates that alters people's minds, that makes them a danger to society. Um, Very dubious grounds to enforce what we see now, and continues to be enforced, is the degradation of Black lives as a rule in our society to create a climate of terror, um, uh, basically devaluing human life and making your value as a human being, how much you're able to produce for your, in terms of capital, in terms of this economy. Again, just trying to get to the root causes, in these discussions. Um, so I think there's an Intercept article that kind of went with this. Nancy Pelosi, her top aide giving assurances. Uh,
Oh
I don't.
yeah. I got you.
Yeah,
Going
I just
to it.
remember. I think I sent you the articles in a different link. I don't know if you have them.
We have it.
There.
We have a visitor.
Oh, hello.
It is Daniel. Oh, my goodness, he brought me a fan.
Oh, sweet. That's live on my show.
Yeah. Just look at that. I got a live on a television show, broadcast show. I got a fan. Right now? Yeah, we're just having a good time here at Fear and Loathing. You want to come say hi to the people?
Did not realize.
Yeah, say hi.
Come say hi to the people.
Hello, people. I can't hear anything. I apologize. I did not realize we were doing a show right now. Hey, everyone.
I made a very bad effort to tell anyone that we were doing.
No, this is good. You know what? Because I wasn't ready to do a show, and you're like, "Are we doing the show?" And I'm like, yeah, let's hurry
Yeah,
up
the
and do
show's
it." So,
happening.
thank you.
But this is the show, and that's.
This is
Oh,
This is
goodness.
how we do.
We're on the story. Top Nancy Pelosi aide privately tells insurance executives not to worry about Democrats pushing Medicare for all. That's
Yep.
the one.
What you call it? Can you go to the next article about the DNC fight against Keith Ellison?
Yes.
And then I think we have 2 video clips we could check out. Cool. So yeah, so this news article, I mean, again, you know, like, I think that people decry a lot of the tone and tenor and words used in the Bernie Sanders grassroots side of the campaign. Although they really went after David Serrata and Brianna Joy Gray, like, and Nina Turner, like crazy, when they were really just, they were good funnels and very disciplined messengers of the energy from the movement. But this is because this is what we're up against. You know, we're up against Pelosi's aides promising these pharmaceutical companies that, you know, see the dangers that hemp has towards their bottom line, and giving them assurances that their norms, what they expect will come into fruition, even though they're not really working towards you know, a sustainable society, even within their industry. Quite frankly, their role in the industry and the services they provide are detrimental to the people that need those services, and their rationalization of that whole industry is actually to the detriment of everyone that needs it. So same goes for Obama pushing for Perez over Keith Ellison. You know, we see at the minutia level how, you know, this system that is unsustainable to the planet, that runs on white supremacy, continues to work to preserve what it values, which is capital rationalizing out society's problems. That just makes human life quite expendable and quite valueless at the end of the day. If you want to go to a video clip 6, I think it is.
I do believe. It's so much fun to look for.
And I brought up Pelosi's aide, Obama pushing Tom Perez. Now, Bill Gates and Andrew Cuomo are sitting down to discuss education, and people are like, "Oh, they're just having a talk." Those talks lead to real things, and something to keep an eye on.
Video clip 6. Oh yeah, I was already on it. Wow, I'm really good. Just really good, really good.
And author on medical marijuana.
Now, the modern uses of cannabis are quite striking. First of all, it's people who have to get cancer chemotherapies for the treatment of various kinds of cancer. Some of them lead to the most pernicious nausea and vomiting. And there are drugs which are used, available antiemetic drugs. But even the newest ones don't give everybody relief from this. Give them cannabis, about 90% of them get excellent relief. They refer to it as miraculous. It's used in the treatment of glaucoma. It's a disease of the increase in intraocular pressure, and it can lead to blindness. Well, there are drugs to treat this, but those drugs have a lot of problems with them.
My condition is glaucoma, and after a year of trying the conventional medications, which are very serious, some of them are actually based on nerve gas, and my body did not respond well to them, a doctor decided to uphold his Hippocratic oath instead of the hypocritical law and tell me that if I didn't start using marijuana, I would go blind.
It's been demonstrated that the cannabis has a remarkable capacity to lower intraocular pressure, and there are people now who believe that they have saved their eyesight
talking
by
about
using
medical use.
Cannabis.
As long as I use marijuana in any way, such as eating it or smoking it, either way, my pressures remain perfectly normal, as if I don't have the disease at all. It's a total deterrent for me.
Cannabis has also been proven to be of therapeutic value in the treatment of AIDS, multiple sclerosis, paraplegia and quadriplegia, asthma, epilepsy, pain relief, and other ailments.
Can we talk on that?
Yeah. Which part?
You'll probably see it in a moment. It's this list that it also helps AIDS, multiple sclerosis, paraplegia, asthma, epilepsy.
And other ailments.
Yep. So, go ahead.
I mean, in 1995, like, the war on drugs is continually ramping up at this point, right? I don't know. I was just being born in 1995, but that seems right. From what I know,
9 years old. I was a hardcore prohibitionist at that point.
And but all of this, I mean, is this based on research, or was this just sort of hearsay? Or because I know that nowadays you can't even do any sort of research on marijuana, right? I think
It's very limited. A lot of the research that led to the pilot program, medical pilot program here in Illinois, was actually based out of Israel. So the U.S. doesn't do this research. It doesn't mean that these activists didn't seek out research. I don't know where they got this from. But these are all ailments, except for asthma. I don't know about that. But these are all ailments that are pretty common to get a medical marijuana card now today. And again, like the answers have always been there, but why was it so important to keep cannabis a Schedule 1 drug? Because it was the number one reason that police had an excuse to harass and agitate Black and brown people who were deemed to be more violent and more likely to be causing crime. Now you create an environment where crime is the only means of survival. I mean, 50% unemployment, you could try to work for minimum wage and fight really hard for a minimum wage job in your area, or you could make $400 a week selling a couple of dime bags of heroin to a couple hopheads, from the suburbs. Of course, if you have a really good operation, have a really good summer, someone might shoot you and take over your block. So
yeah,
there's a lot of risks, and then that creates, what we see, this in the news about, like, people want to talk about super predators, Miss Hillary Clinton, a culture of violence. Well, when you perpetuate these environments, and the only way to succeed in life, to have a life worth living, not a life fighting to be a minimum wage slave in your community, and go through that process of degradation. By the way, those opportunities are very limited to begin with. So even if you're just unlucky and just don't have that, and chances are you are unlucky because that environment is set against you, and here comes an opportunity to live life large and proud on your own terms,
to
that
like
will
actually
create,
like take control of your life, as opposed to having someone else always telling you what you need to do next or what needs to happen.
and I don't think that these colonizers, at the University of Chicago, at Washington, D.C., at, City Hall, aren't unaware of this either, is the other problem with all of it. Again, cannabis being Schedule 1, but we know it has medical properties. These things, are not an accident. And this is also another part of this show, is just showing how ingrained white supremacy is when we say it's systemic. Keeping cannabis a Schedule 1 drug in 1995 up until now, where it's still a controversial issue in some states. As we see, police killings are controversial to some people, but
I don't think that it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous if there's anyone in the world who thinks that there's not enough violence in the streets and that the police aren't propping it up. I mean, it's clear in the numbers. I think if you can go back far enough and find a definite trend of follow the money, as Daniel, who was somewhere around in this room, would say. That's definitely...
Joe Biden is the candidate because of the cynicism of the deep state of this country, with America's inability to really reconcile those realities. Because that's what Bernie Sanders' campaign was forcing people to do, and what people were so uncomfortable about it with. There's a long clip. I know we have about 15 minutes, so I just kind of wanted to do that last clip that we have. I don't even know what it's about, but it says 31 to 37.
31 to... Oh, yeah. It's like the middle of the one that we're on.
Oh.
So we'll just keep going.
It has also been used as a topical antibiotic and analgesic. Dr. Andrew Weil was the first and about the only independent researcher to ever get permission to study marijuana. He carried out his lab experiments at Harvard University Medical School in 1968. He is also a well-known author.
I think the great advantage to trying to find medical uses of marijuana is that it's so non-toxic. Relative to most of the drugs that we use in medicine today, it's very harmless. It just doesn't do that much to the physical body.
But marijuana remains one of the most illegal substances on the planet. In US law, it is placed in the most dangerous category, Schedule 1.
It's in that schedule that drugs like LSD, heroin, and marijuana are placed. And drugs that are in that schedule can't be used at all. They're completely off limits. You can't even do any clinical research. For the last 19 years, all efforts to pry cannabis out of Schedule 1 and just move it to Schedule 2 have failed.
In 1972, the US Drug Enforcement Administration's senior judge, Judge Francis Young, commenced hearings on marijuana.
He came up with a 60-odd page opinion saying marijuana is probably the safest drug in the pharmacopoeia, and it certainly has medical utility, and it should be moved to Schedule 2. It's quite extraordinary just how steadfast the U.S. government has been in not allowing this to be used as a medicine. My hunch is that there's some kind of fear that if we use it as a medicine,
to give
the
Obama
camel
some
will
credit,
get its nose
from
under
the
tent, and
onset,
heavens only
his
knows
goal
what
was
might
always to get
happen.
cannabis to
As
Schedule
Judge
2.
Francis Young said, it's
Obama's goal was? I got a little bit distracted.
Yeah.
But that never happened, sadly.
Nope.
Probably due to the rest of the system fighting against the change.
He had the DEA very close to accepting the Schedule 2. It was 2016 when they decided, nope.
Weird how that works.
Yeah. And again, that's Obama's naivety in trusting the system. I mean, he is the president. I guess he would figure, oh, they'll do what I tell them to do. They didn't.
What a weird, interesting learning curve, right?
Yeah.
Because you have like Obama who purported a lot of change and wanted to do a lot, and then gets in and gets beaten down by the system, and now here 4 years later you have him basically propping up the system that he seemed to want to go up against.
Well, that system has him pretty hostage now, and his life and his family's life is in seeing the system not be upset at him. So,
Yeah. He definitely will provide for his family way better by not rocking the boat too much.
and I do think that Obama, from the onset, he was anything that the police state wanted, anything that the surveillance state wanted, anything that the financial district wanted, any way that they wanted to treat Latino, undocumented immigrants, he was going to give them their way. He would put up a fight for a little while, make it look good, but eventually knew he was going to give them their way. And he thought that would be good enough for them to help him do some halfway decent things, and make him look good, make him a president of note.
Mm-hmm.
And we see in Mitch McConnell where he's going to be a one-term president, and they won't do any of that. Now, for the Democrats' side, they do give Trump anything he wants to do when it comes to tax cuts and world destroying. He actually doesn't world destroy enough for them. I think that he doesn't really have a whole lot that he wanted to do. But Obama, from the very beginning, did want to have cannabis go from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 for the systemic racist implications that would get undone. So that's, I want to, Obama wasn't just he's a sellout, but not like a total sellout. He went in there with a Harvard level plan to systematically run as a Republican, basically, govern as a Republican while being a Democrat to unify the country and be a president of note. It's all a very pretty story in his head. The reality is that the systemic racism, the white supremacy of this country, the way that the left was screaming at Obama about since the Tea Party took over in 2010, early in his administration, was always just going to work to these levels to destroy any impact or legacy he had on the country, even if it meant to the detriment of the entire American empire apparatus, because the white supremacy aspect of it is precisely the project that so many people that take their fundamentalism of this country's founding stick to. Whether you were a northerner looking for black bodies to work your factories, or a southerner that built a culture of treating black bodies like domesticated animals, you are part of this. This country's project has been one that is at war with black lives, with black bodies, and Obama working, I think, you know, smartly, but naively, um, and thinking that he would have enough buy-in from the rest of the white power apparatus to do things like this, when at stake, really what he was trying to do by going from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 2 was subtly undo this whole racist reality that is systemized. Now, Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, he doesn't try to do what Obama does, which is, say, law enforcement is doing the best that they can. This is what they're about. We have to respect your police officers. Uh, and, we need to do law enforcement smarter. Like, you know, Bernie Sanders flat out is saying, like, there's systemic racism in the ways that our laws are made. Cannabis has medical properties and now is being capitalized by white people after it's ruined black lives. We need to deschedule the plant altogether, basically making it open for any small business owner, for any small farmer, for anybody, for the normalcy of this plant's integration into society to be fully realized. And in doing that, he is more definitively saying that the norms that we've always had in making cannabis a Schedule 1 drug have been systemically racist, for white supremacy. Obama going for Schedule 2 is, he's not doing that. He's just like, America is on a learning curve of racism, and we're doing okay. No, we're not, Barry. No, we're not. I think we have that last clip. I don't know if we can play that.
I think I'm being told in the background silently that we should probably wrap now. I think we have a guest that we have to do a call on, but we can pin in it. I know where we're at, and we can finish this discussion and then move into a wider discussion next week.
Sure, we do need to talk more about Solarpunk as an artistic movement, and the way cannabis deregulation, which should be the goal.
That reminded me, I did an image search for Solarpunk, and I mostly just got like a bunch of trees and a lot of pretty things, which is cool. But we'll definitely have to get into that more next week.
Sure. Yeah, do need to talk about the war on drugs too. But anyway, there's another episode of Fear and Loathing, pretty ad hoc, pretty loose. We'll get some theme music, we'll get some stuff. We'll clean this up a little bit.
We're getting incrementally better every time. I feel it.
Yeah, like incremental steps.
Jose, thank you for getting into the Zoom conversation with me today, so that we could do a show. Yeah,
for sure. Thanks for get on the Zoom thing so that we could talk about how to do a show. It's good stuff.
Heck yeah.
Thanks again, Gunnar. All your help. Another episode of Fear and Loathing signing off till next week. Be good, be safe.